Cool.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's so cool to. I guess I met you at another Zoom with Brian, but that was like maybe 2 years ago. Or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, one of those Hartford. I'm like a unofficial Hartford,
Right.
like a mole. I kind of got into
Did you originally meet Brian then? Was it just
Instagram.
online? Instagram.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of train drawing, and he, we followed each other, and eventually I reached out to, like, we were friendly, but then eventually I reached out to him because he was using the brayer.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea how he was. I was like, "What are you using?" So I was like, "Hey, if you're ever doing a demo or something, I'd love for you to like show me, but how you're getting that effect." And then he was like, "Why don't we just Zoom like this week?" And that was it. And I've been talking to him for years now.
That's wild.
Nice.
That's great. That's like the best version of social media. That's like the best outcome.
Yeah.
That can happen. I have friends that I have only known online as well. And I think one of our next interview is a cartoonist named Jen de Oliveira. And I've known her for years, but we've never talked. We've even sent each other mail. Like we send each other like little things in the mail, but we've never even done this, let alone met in person.
Funny.
But it's cool. It's cool to actually.
Yeah, I only just recently met a bunch of artists that I've known since getting to know them through this Facebook comic book group during the pandemic. And then a few I met last year at a Comic-Con, and then a few more I met this year. But it's so wild because it's like meeting people you already know that you feel like you've known for ages, but
right,
they're like a foot taller than you thought they were, or shorter than they thought they were.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I followed
That's
you,
classic.
Chris, for a while, way back. Yeah, with the comic book stuff, because I thought maybe I would try my hand at comics for a while, so I was following all these comic book creators, and you were one of them.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Well, that's classic Brian, though. Like, you reach out and he's like, yeah, why don't we just Zoom?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, when?
He's so generous and open. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I'm glad he did, because obviously, it's been like a snowball effect. Little tips and tricks here and there that he was picking up from Hartford, and then I was like siphoning those and applying them elsewhere.
Oh, I didn't think I guess it is possible like to heal it, because the MFA program is like that. Like it's 2 years of getting tips and tricks. So it's it makes sense.
It's almost like I went through the program with him.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah, over the shoulder kind of.
Exactly.
So great. And that's like the program is so great because they're also open, especially CF, about his techniques. He'll sit down and give, impromptu demos, and like always very open about and that's so great to see somebody of his stature. It's like CF Payne's been on magazine covers, and he's Hall of Fame illustrator, but he'll still tell you his secrets. Like, yeah, this is how I did that. And
I got to sit in on a Christmas draw with him.
Cool.
And got to watch him kind of like, watch a sketch develop. And yeah, he's amazing. And it's funny too.
Dickens one?
Yeah. He had someone play some music, and it was like, someone get some Bing Crosby going, and let's draw.
Yeah.
Which was really nice. And then, but yeah, like even with you, Chris, I watched. Like when you went through Hartford, I saw you use the brayer on like some comic book stuff, and I'm like, ooh, it really lends itself to it. And then Kelly, with you, I saw the thesis you did with the cards, which I love.
Thanks.
I need a copy of those whenever you start selling them.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I really should sell them, and I keep telling myself I want it to be a book. So if I sell it, then I'm worried that a publisher won't wanna pick up something that was already kind of sold. But maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe publishers aren't like that. Maybe publishers like it when something is, already in demand. I'm not sure. Yeah.
There's a school of thought it's like, especially nowadays, the publishers want to see you already have an audience.
Right.
And basically you prove you have an audience by selling this version of it.
Yeah.
So if they see, oh yeah, this has legs, then we'll boost it up with our new production of it. But
right.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, because I'll show people that
like where
What's that?
people get denied a publisher because like they check their Instagram following. They're like, well, you've only got 2,000 followers, and that's not good enough for, which is wild, especially if you're insanely talented. Which some of these people who I've heard been turned away are extremely talented and seasoned, 30-year artists who have a
Mm-hmm.
huge name in the industry. And it's like a publisher will come along, look at a number, and then dismiss someone who's brilliant. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I've seen in the last couple of years people get children's book deals based solely on their internet popularity.
Yeah.
Like, not their skill. Just
Right.
just their internet popularity. Yeah. So yeah, it is a real thing. Back when I first got published, I had on Twitter, which was the thing back then in the children's book world, like Twitter was everything. Everybody was on Kidlit Twitter. So I had like, the number is stupid, but I had 5,000 followers. And my publisher, HarperCollins, was like, "We love your social media following."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you do?" But back then 5,000 was a lot. This is
Right.
like in 2012.
Yeah.
5,000 was a lot, Now 5,000 is nothing.
Yeah. I was late to the internet party, so I got on, I think, in 2018. And yeah, I don't know. I'm past that magical algorithm that some people talk about. I've been stuck at that whatever number I'm at for a long time.
Yeah, I try not to care much. I don't know if the publishers care as much if you're already published, but definitely
Yeah.
the whole debut thing is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in children's publishing, they love a debut. So
Right.
they like to be the people who break out. Publishers like own the, oh yes, we broke out their career, we started their
Right.
career,
Right.
and they take ownership of you. So yeah. So we should officially start. So we have been kind of jibber jabbering, but we should have an official start.
Sure.
This is still good stuff.
It is still good stuff, and we'll probably still use it. We'll probably,
Okay.
yeah. But we need to have a welcome moment. Do you want to do it, Chris?
Sure. Thanks again so much for joining us, Chris. We're here with the talented Cris Gural. Nice. The amazingly talented and hilarious Cris Gural. He's doing these awesome kind of New Yorker cartoons, not just for the New Yorker, but that's kind of the style, one panel, hilarious cartoons. He's doing some cool animation. As he mentioned a little bit ago, he's done a lot of awesome, I guess, observational kind of train sketching, subway sketching, which are great kind of character moments and character designs. But we're happy to have you with us. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I was looking forward to this. So thanks for having me.
It's so cool. Yeah, it's so cool I spent some time today just reading your cartoons and laughing and smiling. And yeah, it really is. So here on Cartoon Everything, like we talk about every genre of cartoons, whether it's comic books, comic strips, animated cartoons, if it's editorial, is it political, is it caricature, is it humor? And yeah, I had many a chuckle today looking at your cartoons.
I am obsessed as the both of you with everything cartoons, so this is perfect.
So we like to kind of talk to the guests about your earliest cartoon memory. That's kind of where we start. So I am going to say you're a native New Yorker.
Yes.
And you hail from Queens?
I do.
Yeah, what part of Queens?
Woodhaven.
Oh, Woodhaven. So I used to work near Glendale for a while. So right off Metropolitan Avenue. I always like to say near the cemetery.
That's right. All of Queens is a cemetery, though.
Yeah.
The joke only people who've been to Queens know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Queens Cemetery.
I always say Queens is where New York goes to bury their dead. Harry Houdini is there. But yeah, there's like, it's crazy how many cemeteries are there. Like there's a big one in Glendale, but I mean, every neighborhood in Queens you go through, there's a pretty big cemetery.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be haunted Queens, but that's fine.
Yeah. Haunted by the Corona Ice King. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so I think I only worked there for about 2 years, but it was great because it really is, it's its own flavor of New York and Queens. So I lived in Brooklyn for a while and it's totally different.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
living
Queens
in
is
working.
the world's borough, as they call it, and great food, but it's everything is kind of like few far and in between. It's not as populated as Brooklyn, not as many hip spots, so it's a hidden gem. And like I was close before I moved out. I'm in Pennsylvania now, but before I moved out, I was close to Rockaway Beach, which
Okay.
is which is the best. It's like so
Yeah.
nice to live. It was like 15 minutes from the beach, so it was nice.
Yeah, it is great over there. Yeah, there's something about that, like being at the beach, but also like you turn around and it's New York.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I was
something.
a 15-minute drive, so I was it was like far enough, but yeah, I mean, some mornings I could step out of my house, I could smell the bay,
Yeah.
which is sometimes a bad thing too.
I know, yeah, exactly. Sometimes a little funky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you remember being a kid in Queens? So when you were young, can you remember what your first kind of cartoon memory experience would have been? The thing
Uh,
that you remember?
yeah, kids' books probably. My mom read a lot of kids' books to me, and Mouse Soup and Mouse Tales, which are both Arnold Nobel books.
Arnold Nobel, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobel. I love it. Arnold Nobel. So yeah, I'm like picturing they had an exhibit of his work at the Rockwell, I think like a year or two ago.
Missed that,
It was
huh?
pretty great. Yeah.
I love those books. I read them to my kid now.
Yeah.
So I distinctly remember those. And my mom, thank God too, she was a person who like when she read the book, and probably also now as a parent, I'm realizing, the longer you can keep a kid busy, the better because you don't have to answer any questions and you don't have to make food. Um, but she used to like open those books and read them, and then she would be like, look at the cabinet back there. Look at all the teacups. Look, that teacup has a crack in it. Look at that pot. That pot, is it old or is it new? And asking me all those questions. But I truly believe like poring over those details that way made me really like acutely sensitive to looking at art in a certain way and appreciating it and really soaking it in.
And
So
if I remember correctly, like his work is really shape focused, like really clear shapes, right?
yeah. He
Yeah.
has a device that he uses in one of his stories. So in Mouse Tales, it's 7 different stories. They're all
Mhm.
so fun. But one of the last ones, I think it's like the 5th story, is a story about a mouse who's trying to get to his mom's house. And it's a line of dialogue and then a little tiny picture at the end. And then a line of dialogue and a little tiny picture. And the whole story is like that. So it's like he starts driving to his mom's house and the car breaks down and it shows the little broken car. So the first line, he's in the car. The next line down, it's a little broken car. And I've never seen anyone else do it. It's a really unique form of storytelling. He only does it in one story in the book. And yeah, I just love it. And I like it's in the back of my head. Like I'm going to use that sooner or
Yeah.
later.
Right?
Little device because it's such a powerful way to tell a story. And if you can cartoon and all the little details are there, it was like a home run. But yeah, a lot of shapes, so a lot of very specific, especially in that one. But I mean, yeah, the storytelling was great. He reminds me of Maurice Sendak a little bit.
Same generation, like the same contemporaries when they were
Yeah,
working. Yeah. It was a good time back then in children's books.
yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of groundbreaking stuff that today is like we think of kind of as tropes, but no, they were the ones that kind of originated.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And then I
yeah.
got obsessed with and this is like the natural progression of like staring at all that stuff is Waldo books, which
Yeah.
I told Brian when I spoke to his class last week, I really think like we should sign a petition and get Martin Handford stuff into museums because I don't know how big those drawings are, but they're really incredible because they draw you in, and there's a billion different narratives in there.
Yeah.
If they're at the beach, there's like people getting sunburned and someone's stepping on someone's chest, they're not paying attention, they got a stack of towels over there. And because you have to find Waldo and then on subsequently like find his camera, find his glasses, it
Mm-hmm.
keeps you on those pages over and over and over. And those are my favorite drawings on planet Earth. I just bought the box set for my son, and
Mm.
really I bought them for me. Like I bought them
Right.
for him. but they've been down here with me for.
Have you forgotten over the years where Waldo is?
Yes.
So he's still hard to find. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, though, there's some of them that are so seared into my brain that I knew exactly where he was. And like books, he carries a stack of books and he loses one book per page. And I could remember where those books were. And I was like, I was a little like, embarrassed for myself. I'm like, really, guy? Like, this is what you're using your hard drive for?
This
Like,
was taking up space. Yeah.
Yeah, this is still there. I'm like, there's a blue book on this page and I know where it is. It's like up between this, this person's feet.
Certain things, when you take them in at a certain time in your life, they really do leave like an indelible mark on your brain.
For sure.
Something that you looked at over and over again. I had this little soft covered children's book that came out of the Scholastic book clubs. I've never seen this book in hardcover. I've never seen the book anywhere else other than this little soft cover book. And it used to just sit on my night table.
Which
forever.
book is this?
This is called The Littlest Rabbit.
Okay.
I don't even know if I picked it out, because looking at it, it's like, what if my parents picked this out? Because I was always like the shortest little kid in my class. So the book is about the littlest rabbit, and all the other rabbits are growing up, and that rabbit kind of stays small. But the thing is, at the end of the book, the little rabbit gets a little bit of a growth spurt, and the mean rabbit that teased it all the time, the little rabbit marches over angrily and socks it in the nose, like punches it in the face. And the big rabbit keels over. And like that pose of like the little rabbit, like I could see it. It's like burned into my brain, like that image. They would never put that in a children's book today. Like no socking in the face like anymore.
The Lobel, aside from the little lines, there's an image of the wind, and it's a big blustery face, big cloud, and he's zipping it. That's also seared in my brain.
Yeah.
I love that drawing. I love that image. It's like my favorite thing. Like I have 0 tattoos, but like if I was one of those people that like piecemeal, like tats, totally, I'd have that little wind on me.
So after your Where's Waldo kind of fixation, so was there a time where you realized, like, were you drawing a lot? Like as a kid, were you drawing a lot? Or is there another time where like something else kicked you, like started you, got you into drawing?
No, I drew since I could pick up a pencil. So yeah, I was always drawing. But I did stop around 12. I stopped drawing almost completely. And I was in Woodhaven, and at 12, I was already starting to get in a little bit of trouble. So had a friend who did graffiti, and then I started to do graffiti, and then for 10 years, that's all I did. And when I was talking,
you're still drawing, just a different.
Sort of. Well, I mean, it was just letters, though. I really wasn't like, there was no, and I drew Homer Simpson like through those 10 years. I was like I was like a one-trick pony. But yeah, I was like a very serious graffiti writer. So I was like, on the rooftops and, all that kind of stuff. And so, but I'm upset, that I missed this huge chunk of time not drawing. So, but when I did finally get back into drawing, I got like overly obsessed, and, I started to like overcommit to drawing. Like I drew, my wife was in labor and I was in the hospital room drawing her, and she was like, "I'll murder you." And I was like, all right, this is too much.
Maybe.
Gotta put the pencil down.
Yeah. So yeah, I overcommitted.
You course corrected.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, overcorrected. Well, what got you back into drawing?
The train.
Okay.
So like basically I got in trouble, and then like, I didn't take care of myself. I wasn't, it was like a lot of fuzziness there, we'll say. And I kind of like spun out at 25, 26. And I was like, I'm an adult now. I could barely hold a 9-to-5 job. So I rebuilt a little bit, and I got a very serious job. I became like an elevator mechanic.
Yeah.
And then in the morning I would take the train to work, and after work I would take the train home. And now I'm eating good. I'm like, I'm doing a very physical job. So I literally have to become physically strong, which was never my deal. I was like 100 pounds soaking wet. So that all had to change. And then because I was on the train, I wanted to draw. I didn't know what to draw. And there was a guy, Will Terrell. He used to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he was a big guy, like a big proponent of like, just draw from life, draw people you see. And I was like, I could latch on to that line of thinking. And that's what I started to do. But I very quickly got super obsessed. And then like, as I got good at fixing elevators, I started to very quickly think, well, if I could get good at this and I kind of don't even love this and I love to draw, then I could probably get really good at drawing if I commit. And I had that thought, like, if it's 10 years to become a doctor, 10 years to become a lawyer, it'll probably take 10 years to become a professional artist, or at least my work to be the quality of a professional artist. And I was at 26 and I'm 38 now. So it worked, you know, like.
Did you make a decision when you decided to start that practice of like drawing on the train? Did you just kind of like do it automatically without thinking? Did you ever make a conscious choice to go, well, now I'm going to actually lean into cartooniness?
So when I first got on the train, I started to first brought a pencil, and I came off the train. I had 0 drawings because I just spent my whole time erasing. So then I was like, all right, I got to bring a ballpoint pen. And that became like the weapon of choice. And then once I started to kind of, you know, find my way around a face and got like decent at drawing, the cartooning came quickly. Like, even though it was like background noise, it was something I did in my sketchbooks. I would either draw like a little cartoon devil on someone's shoulder, or, you know, I draw whatever, weird things, a turtle in front of someone or something. And then like in my sketchbook, I also very early on, I was drawing a cartoon of a kid and an elephant. And I abandoned it, but I drew it for like a year. I had nothing in my head about it. It was just something that was like kind of a side thing. It's, when I look back now, 10 years after, or 12, I look back at those and I go, it was there all along. And like I didn't do that. For 7 years, I just drew faces on the train. And yeah, I sprinkled in some cartooning, but it was the pandemic that like really sprung the cartooning comic book thing, because my kid was born September in 2019, and 6 months later we were in lockdown.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm a first responder. Like, I'm on call once a week, 24 hours. So if someone's stuck in an elevator in Brooklyn, they call me. I rush over there. I get them out. I'm touching buttons. I'm touching doors.
Yeah.
So, and I got a 6-month-old, like, vulnerable baby. And then, you know, especially at the time, like the paranoia was so heightened.
Yeah.
And so I made a decision, like, I'm not going to take the train anymore. I can't do that. Like, there's enough germs at my job. And so I was home and, you know, driving to work, and I made this like decision, like, I still want to draw, obviously. And the cartooning easily came to me. Like, that was the natural progression. And so I started to try and draw comic books. And honestly, Chris, I was really like following your stuff heavy at the time. And I was like, I can't believe this guy is doing a page a day, like, easily. At least you were posting a page a day. I was like, this is impossible. This is an impossible amount of work. Because I was still in like the character designing phase of like trying to figure out a comic book. And I was watching you just put panels together every day. And I was like, this is crazy. How does he do that? But yeah, so that's kind of like how it came about. So it was like 7 years of that, of the train stuff. And I did have someone reach out to me during that time, right at like the 7-year mark, and they wanted me to do an album cover for them.
Cool.
And it got sold, in like Germany, and it was like old school hip hop stuff, like people from the 90s. Brand Nubian was on there, and like
cool
people I knew. So I was really excited. And that was like the first inkling, like, oh, I really could do it professionally. Like, maybe, like, this isn't like, obviously doing this one thing I can't call this professional to some degree. Now looking back on it, I kind of like, no, that's a job.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, you're not yourself
Someone
down.
pays you for your drawing. Boom, you're a professional. You've done it.
Right. Yeah, I still have that thing where I knock myself down a peg when I think about things. But yeah, it was really nice to like have someone reach out and go like, I really love this stuff, and you know, and then to see it turn into like a record and a cassette, and he sent me like the whole press kit and all that stuff, and I was like, wow, I didn't have to do
it. Really feels like a real thing when you actually can hold it in your hand.
As soon as
Yeah, I was
it's
like,
in
all I
print,
have to do
yeah.
is draw.
I always think the artwork looks different once it's in print too. It's like it looked one way on the page when I was creating it. When it's in print, I'm like, it did look that like now it looks better.
Yeah. Well, when your book came out, that must have been a huge like victory, going over your pages and stuff. I'm talking about you, Kelly. Yes.
Me? Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I think that right before you got on, we did an unboxing for Chris's new
Yeah, I
his
just got.
reissues of his comic books that he had done. So we actually just did that. That unboxing moment is so good. Don't they
Sweet.
look great? So those
Yeah.
are new covers and re-releases of his comics. So that literally, when you slice open the box, is like it's such a good moment. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, oh, you can hold it, you can smell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool, and I didn't know that about that you were following my stuff at that time. That's so wild,
Yeah.
and like that's one of those projects I'll give to myself to make yourself do a page a day. It's like whether you spend an hour, whether you spend all day, whether you spend half an hour, that's your goal. You just got to do something every day, and then you build momentum. Probably like you can relate with the subway sketches. Like once you get it going, then it's like, well, yeah, I got to do it. Like this is part of my routine now. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
your brain almost helps you out. Subconsciously, like you don't even think intellectually about how am I going to build this page. You just think it's time to do it. Then you do it, and you move on to whatever else you got to do that day.
Yeah. It's still a little harder to do that comic page because, again, like the train stuff was simpler just because I just drew the face in front of me. Like even if afterwards I improvised and threw a cartoon on him, that's different. But sorry, my dog's crying.
No.
Yeah, he's old. He's like he wants more attention than ever. But yeah, like so all I had to do was just draw the face in front of me, but you have to come up with, angles, camera angles, where you're showing this stuff from. Um yeah, a lot harder. But yeah, you did your page a day and do you hear him?
A little
Yeah.
bit, but it doesn't sound like a dog.
Yeah, he's like whining. Can you give me 1 second so I
Yeah,
can pour him
yeah, yeah.
some
Sure.
No,
water?
Of
no, go
course.
ahead. We're cool. It didn't sound like a dog, that noise.
Well,
It sounded more like a child. Like, that's funny.
yeah, certain dogs,
Sorry.
What kind of dog
no
is
worries.
He's a boxer.
Okay, that makes sense
Oh, okay.
then. Yeah, because
Yeah,
boxers make weird noises.
he's
Yeah.
vocal. Yeah. And he's on medication now, so he's like
Mm,
he's got cotton mouth. Like I know that's why he's crying to me. He's like,
right.
please
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
me
I gave him
water.
water before we started this, and he's already like, I need please more. So
Sounds funny.
Have you drawn the dog much?
more than maybe anything else I've ever drawn. I should have sent. I know, but you had that folder. I'll send some pictures of those because I've
Yeah,
drawn
yeah.
Yeah.
so many times. Yeah, I actually have. I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder. Someone made that for me. It's a crocheted
A
version.
version of your dog sitting up there on the top of the couch.
Oh, now I see it. Yeah.
That's
Oh, that's
hilarious.
great.
It's so fun.
So funny.
Yeah, someone
Nice.
made that for us.
That's great.
That's cool. So you were looking, any other artists you were looking at the time? Like you're going through building your chops up, like getting back into art, riding the train. Are you looking like mostly online or like any other
Yeah,
art
I'm
you
looking
remember?
online, and thank God we had kayfabe. So
Yeah.
guys are a wealth of knowledge. So between the two of them, my bookshelf started to fill up fast.
Right.
Wow. So yeah.
Everything that they were reviewing, I was going out and getting. And now, like, I didn't know who Dan Klaus was, and now all of a sudden
Oh,
I
yeah.
do. And I was a kid, when I was younger, I was in the comic book shops, but I was just like, I was a Spider-Man kid, and I would grab kind of everything or anything. But yeah, I didn't know about like 8 Ball or any of that kind of stuff. That all came later. And then yeah, all of these books. But I was looking at like specifically, trying to think here. I liked Chris Ware's sketchbooks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
His technical stuff is great, his comics, but they're so technical. I love looking at his like sketchbooks and flipping through those. Who else did I really love? I mean, I like Ralph Steadman
Mhm.
because just the chaos of his stuff. Like once I started to like not draw train stuff, I really like started to play with all the mediums, and I started. That's why I contacted Brian, because he had this texture that I was like, how is this texture? Is like, it's fuzzy at times,
Yeah.
like especially with like CFs, it gets really like warm and fuzzy looking. I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, I don't see that in Stedman's stuff, so
Right.
let me figure out how he's
Very
doing that.
opposite. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm obsessed with everybody. Peter DeSev
Yeah.
is another person.
Huge.
Yeah. And like Barry Blitt, anyone who was ink and watercolor, I was big, just like very obsessed with. God, I have such a big thing. Robert Crumb, Bill Clinton, who's
Bill
the
Clinton.
independent animator,
Okay.
and I got to meet him. He had an open studio.
Cool. There in New York.
You could go into his studio, and he was like, you can go through any box. They were just shelves and shelves of all the movies he's made. And I'm like, I can take it off the shelf and go through it. He's like, absolutely. So I was there for 3 hours. I sat on the floor, and I had like 2 and 3 boxes, and I was just going through frame by frame, because I was animating at the time, trying to figure out. And I was like, wow, just frame to frame how loose it was. Like, I was expecting, it's not Disney. He does 9 frames a second.
Yeah.
So instead of the 24. So there's a lot of difference between the poses. It's not like super fluid.
Right.
Drawing to drawing, I couldn't believe how different some of these drawings look. Like, he did 7 different Simpsons openings. And I bought a frame of one of his last Simpsons ones. But yeah, just frame to frame, I'm like, man, the pupils are different, like the head shapes are different, and it reads totally perfectly when you go through it. And I got to talk to him and sit on the couch next to him, and he was literally coloring frames for the movie Slide with colored pencil.
Cool.
And he sat there and talked to me, and I was like, obviously I'm like a big fan and all this stuff, and I was like, can I show you some of my animation? He was like, of course. And I showed him. He's like, oh, this stuff is great, and you should, look into the festivals. And I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit older, Bill. I'm 30 years old now. And he was like, Chris, I didn't do my first animated anything till I was 45. He was like,
I'm
like, all right, well, now I can't. My excuse.
No excuse.
No excuse. Yeah, it's funny. I teach a drawing for animation class, and I just showed them Bill Plimpton Monday.
What'd you show him?
Guard dog, because I thought like it was one. I was like, well, it's got a dog. I'll go in. I don't know how these students are going to react, because so vastly different to what they're used to. Because the festivals aren't around. Like when I was in college, I used to go to all the festivals, and these students aren't.
Yeah.
They're just catching whatever they find online, for animation. So I was like, trying to give a little like, I was like, this guy's a legend.
Yeah, he really is, though.
He's a legend of animation, and we've looked at so many. Semester's almost over. I said I would be remiss if I didn't show you, like the greatest independent animator.
For sure.
Yeah.
Once I like got back in it, like once I got into his stuff, I realized I knew him from my childhood. Like he had stuff on MTV, he had commercials, like he was super successful. And as I started going through his stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this is the guy that I recognize this stuff from my childhood. And then like even in my teen years, very early on, I think on Kanye's first or second album, he did a video. And the video is gorgeous. Of course it is. And it's just raw pencil. There's nothing else. And
I heard that he did that in like a week.
He said Kanye was over his shoulder while he drew it. He actually came into the studio and sat over his shoulder and told him, like, can you make me more handsome? Can you all that kind of stuff. He told me a really funny story. Like, So, and he's big friends with Weird Al. He's done all kinds of Weird Al videos. And he did one called I think it's called The Flower in the Fan. It's the only one that doesn't look like it was drawn by him.
It looked different style,
I was like, how did you do this one? Because I know everything else is hand-drawn. So I was like, is this one digital? And he was like, no, that's a Sharpie marker. I'm like, there's no way.
No way.
This whole thing is just one Sharpie. He's like, yep, just one Sharpie marker. It's incredible because it's clean, crisp, black and white.
Yeah, yeah.
And, like, Sharpies bleed
They
really
do
badly.
bleed,
It's like one
yeah.
of the only things I don't use, like, ever. Like,
Yeah.
I've used every tool that you could think of except Sharpies
It's
because they
true.
bleed
They
so
bleed.
poorly. But
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. It's like a cliche, but I've got a friend who makes Sharpies sing. We talked to him, Bill Drastel, and like it's his weapon of choice. And he's the only one I know that can make it look that great and cartoony and clean
Yeah, we
consistently.
interviewed him a little. He was our last interview. It was the last one they did. I don't remember, but yeah, I even said to him, I was like, I mean, it's like, but they bleed. What kind of paper are you using? That I was like, are you using a slick paper? I've been writing with one, and even just my writing becomes hard to read.
Yeah.
Because it closes up.
sure.
So he must move his hand really fast.
Exactly.
That could be it. So yeah, between Bill and Bill Plimpton, I guess you got to be named Bill. You gotta
Bill,
go really
only
fast.
the Bills.
See, we're getting to the bottom of the.
So that's great. I feel like we just naturally went into like a really cool direction. Went, talking about your favorites and winding up with talking about Bill Plimpton. So when you started animating, like it's a huge thing to start from drawing on a train to working your way to figuring out animation on your own. Like you packed a lot. Like you're like, I told myself 10 years. You packed a lot into 10 years. Like that's a lot.
Yeah. Honestly though, the animation came really naturally. A lot of stuff is very painful for me to like get through artistically, and for some reason there's something about sitting down and animating, and like once you figure out the first drawing, you have to draw that 15 more times.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something really calm and meditative and like easy about just drawing the same thing slightly different over and over. I can do that for hours, and I have. I've not that I have like a great animations, but I do have like a handful of stuff that I've just done, and I still do them now. When I get really like when I have a deadline, instead of doing that, I sit down and I start to animate stuff myself.
Isn't that amazing how that happens?
Yeah.
Ever a deadline gets closer, you're like, but I want to draw this.
Yeah, every time.
For sure.
Yeah. So what did you first start pursuing with animation? Were you just doing it on paper? How did you actually get into the nuts and bolts of it?
Procreate. And that's because it made it so easy. Like I still use the same thing. I know they have like an animation program, which I downloaded. Way too complex. Like I said, I'm not a digital person. So I saw it had like all sorts of different tiers and
right.
Great.
It's like a virtual exposure sheet. Create Dream.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I can't do that. It has to act like a sheet of paper where it's just the next sheet, and then I just draw and I do it all by hand. And like I've used little tricks like copy and paste, but I try not to do that because, like Bill Plimpton, there's a lot of that.
Vibrating line, right?
Vibrating
that
energy
visual vibration that's like so good.
That I really like. And early on, I was doing like crazy cross hatching in the animation, which was taking like each drawing was taking way too long. But the final result, when I watched it back, I was like, man, this is really worth it. Like, and there's no deadline for those. They're for fun. So I had to keep telling myself that when I was like, this is taking too long. I'm like, too long for who or for what?
Right.
Like, no one's expecting.
Nobody's banging down your door.
Yeah, no one wants these. I'm doing them for myself. Take your time.
So when did the idea of writing? So you can't be a humorist, cartoonist, one panel cartoonist, gag cartoonist, unless you actually put your mind to like an idea and starting to write down those ideas. It's one thing to draw. It's one thing to draw cartoons. It's a whole nother thing to start deciding I'm actually going to write something and make it, make it my actual cartoon comic.
Yeah, I think it started with the comics. Like I do this thing, I got to show you, Chris. It was I was drawing this thing called Frank the Caterpillar. He's half man, half caterpillar. But he's a really, really fun design. And I have all these crazy villains for him. And so I was writing lots of storylines and some dialogue, but a lot of storylines and world building and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Which I know if you get too far, then you're not writing a comic. You're world building.
It's like it's definitely a spiral you can get bogged down in, but
Yeah.
it's so fun too.
But so the writing definitely stemmed from there, and I was always big on comedians. Like I grew up, George Carlin and all that stuff. Like I loved all those guys. And yeah, at some point I was doing Inktober, and I had the prompt was scurry, and I did an animation, and I wrote the word scurry, and it's written in like a disheveled room's garbage, like the S's, like socks and shirts all bundled up. And I did like in Ren and Stimpy or like the old Looney Tunes, like Bob Clampett stuff, where there's like that freeze frame and it's like a beautifully painted drawing.
Yeah.
So I did like a really, like painted room of all this trash, and it spells out the word scurry. And then I animated like 900 roaches flying out in every direction. And then I had some extra time, and I decided to draw a cartoon. It was like New Yorker style, and it was 4 roaches, and one of them's got like a sweatband on and a sports water bottle, and he's got wristbands, and he's telling 3 other roaches, I used to scurry when the lights came on too.
Yeah.
Then I discovered power walking.
Right.
And that was like the first one. And I was like, oh, this is like a New Yorker cartoon. Like I didn't intend it to be, but I was like, this really looks like a New Yorker cartoon, feels like a New Yorker cartoon. And then that was it. From right then, like the light bulb kind of went off. And I had no art books in my house growing up. So I had a Norman Rockwell Christmas book, which was, of course, like it's that thick. It had beautiful art. And he was my favorite artist and the only artist I knew as a kid. And then when I was like 12 years old, right when I started to do graffiti, a New Yorker book popped up into my house. And so I pored over that thing. It was the only other thing, and I really loved it.
Was it like a history, like a collection, a New Yorker collection?
It was the 75-year anniversary collection.
Cool.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Nice.
It's a Sam Gross. The one that I stuck out was a Sam Gross cartoon, and it's 2 snails, and then they're looking at a tape dispenser, and the one
I know that.
Yeah. The one snail saying to the other, I don't care if she is a tape dispenser.
Right.
Love her. And however old I was, 11, 12, that it spoke to me. And I was just like, man, I love this language. I love how silly this is. I love the visual gag of it. And yeah, I don't know. It must have borrowed itself in.
Clicked.
That you mentioned that you loved comedians. And now we're talking about this because I have in the past likened New Yorker cartoonists to the stand-up cartoonists. Like there's all forms of comedy. They're all great, but there's nothing like being a stand-up. It's the most dangerous thing you can do, right? It's scary and you have to be a certain kind of crazy to do that. And I think in the world of cartoonists, it's the same thing. Like to be a one-panel New Yorker cartoonist is just like being like a stand-up. You're just like the right kind of good kind of crazy.
Yeah.
To be able to do that.
There's so many New Yorker cartoonists who do stand up. Will Santino's one of them. Ash Perlman. Yeah. Oh yeah. Asher's great. And less stand up, but he writes for the Colbert Show. And lots of these guys, they, just through the years have written for Late Night, or this guy's from SNL and Seinfeld. And I met Matt Diffie, and he was saying like,
he's great.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I can't believe I got to meet him. He was so nice. But he told me, he was like, I was obsessed with Stephen Wright. He was like, if you look at my cartoons, like, he's like, I just draw 2 people. And then I write like a Stephen Wright joke, basically, like, his version, obviously. He's brilliant in his own sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what he told me. He's like, I just love those like kind of one-liner things. Like he's got those 2 old ladies, and one saying to the other, I don't know about you, but I can't get used to this thong. And it's like, it's such a great, there's so many of them. He's got the firefighters, and it's like a huge apartment building's on fire, and the firefighters going, you better use the good water. These are luxury apartments. And he's so good at figuring out, like, he's got a perfect recipe. Every cartoon he ever did was like, 100% perfect.
Yeah. And he's got it's so amazing. There's so many rejected collections. Like they're all great too.
Yeah, he's done 2 of those or 4 of them. I forget. But yeah, and then he has a book called what is it, Cartoons for Smart and Handsome People or something like that.
Yeah,
That's another great.
excellent title.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so cool. So when you first started getting into making these, when did you start thinking I need to be sending these to people, like trying to get actually published?
I did. I had like 20 of them made, and it was just one of those random nights, and I was on the phone with Brian, and he was like, "What are you working on?" And I was like, "I don't even want to tell you because it's ridiculous." And he was like, "What?" I said, I'm kind of drawing like New Yorker style cartoons. And he was like, "Oh, cool." And he was like, "Why don't you send them to the New Yorker?" And I was like, "Because it's the New Yorker, and I don't think you can." And then he was like, "Check your text messages. I just sent you a link." And it was the link to send them directly to the New Yorker website. And I was like, "Oh, you can just send them." And that was it. I started to send them, and I sent them for. I was sending to what I now know is known as like the slosh pile,
Right.
and you can send 10 a month. And so I did that, and I sent 10 a month for 8 months. So I did 80 cartoons, even though I drew more than that. But the first batch I sent, I was like, all right, I should hear back in a week or so. And then I didn't. And then 2 months went by, and I sent the next batch. And I was like, all right, well, it's 2 months now. I should probably hear back in a week or so. And then 3 months, 4 months, 5. And then I hit that 8-month mark. And I just accepted the fact I was sending these into like a black hole. Either they were being seen and no one liked them, or they were being rejected. I had no idea. And then at the 8-month mark, I got a letter from the New Yorker, like an email. And it said, "Thank you for sending these. We can't use them. And why don't you look at the magazine to see what we normally like?" And I was like, "Oh my God, these are so bad that they think I've never seen the magazine." I now know that's an automated message.
Right.
But at the time, oh my God, they're awful.
Pretty snarky automated message.
It sure is. And so I looked at the first batch, and honestly, they were right. I mean, I had a full color cartoon in there, which they really don't do. There's only one artist who gets away with that on a every cartoon basis, and that's this guy Glenn Baxter. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
And they're really weird, surreal, color pencil. They're beautiful.
That's funny. Gahan or Gahan Wilson would do color too, and he was also really surreal and bizarre. So I wonder if they only let the surrealists do the color.
Yeah, maybe. So, but I looked at those and I went, okay, I get why, they kind of rejected those. And so I took the 70 off the website, and I was listening to it, like anything you do, right? You get like super obsessed, you listen to all the podcasts. And I had heard someone say that the editor found them on Instagram somehow. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's a faster option, because I couldn't do another 8 months of rejection at that point. So I decided, I was like, I'll take these 70, I'll pick out the ones I really like, and I'll start to shop them into other publications, and maybe the editor will see them. And I still don't know to this day if that's how she saw them or what, but that's what I did. So I sent it to the Weekly Humorist. I got into Alta Journal, American Bystander, which was huge. Mm-hmm. That's a great humor magazine. Yeah. I absolutely adore them. And where else? A handful of places. And then one day, I got a follow from Emma on Instagram. And after 8 grueling hours of silence, I just finally thanked her, like, "Hey, thank you for following me." And then she sent me a really nice note, like, "Hey, I'd love for you to send these cartoons to me." And
awesome.
I thought, oh, well, I was squirreling the good cartoons away. And I was like, well, if she likes what I was doing before, she's going to, I'm going to knock her socks off with what I've been saving for this occasion. And then, I sent my first batch, and I got rejected. And now I'm sending 10 a week, and I'm sending them on Tuesday. You get your no on Friday. So this is better than the 8-month black hole. And I got my first rejection, and then I sent my second batch, and I got my second rejection. But I got a really nice note, like, this one almost sold, and that was enough to fuel me. And then I went through months and months of rejection, and then I kind of burned out. And I took this was in 2023. And then I took a 3-month hiatus to collect myself, because all I was doing now was drawing New Yorker cartoons. I was writing, drawing and writing, and I wasn't drawing my dog anymore. I wasn't drawing, any
Right.
of the other stuff that I really love to do. I do love to just like, draw. So he heard me.
I know. That was a perfect.
Yes. So I was
Draw
like, I'm
me.
gonna take some time off, enjoy drawing again, kind of find myself, go through the Peter DeSev books and go through your Bill
Right.
Clinton books and all these other things. And then I made like a commitment to myself, like when January 1st hits, I'm never gonna miss a week.
Mm.
And 2024 came around, and I sold in March my first
Nice.
cartoon in 2024, and then I sold two more in that year. So I sold three in the year, and I was like, super happy. And then I
Yeah.
also sold to Airmail, who was rejecting me for quite some time,
Yeah.
and I sold a bunch to him. He started to really like my stuff, and I
Nice.
wanted to sell to him because it was Bob Mankoff, who was the former
Right.
editor of the New Yorker for 30 years, and he's a
Yeah.
cartoonist in the pages since the 70s. So it was really important. He's 80 years old. So it was really important for me. And he did that book, that 75-year anniversary book that showed up in
Right.
my house, that sprung the whole idea that I could even do this.
A full circle moment.
So
Yeah.
and it was cool. So he started to like buy from me a bunch, and then I got to meet him and do like one of these things here. I did like a judge, like a contest thing, and he was like super complimentary, and he's from Queens, and so we got to
Right.
chat about being from Queens a lot, and
Nice.
so yeah, it was nice.
That's so great. So were there any other along the way? Are you meeting any other cartoonists of the same ilk that you can chat with or commiserate with?
Well, yeah. So during that like 3-month hiatus, I started to like seek out other New Yorker cartoonists just to ask for advice, because like here I am like burning out, and they're producing. So I was like, what's the secret sauce here? Asher Perlman was one who did one of those workshops, and I took that with him and found
Okay.
a new way to think about writing.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Adam Katzenstein was another one. And again, he gave me a different way to think about writing New Yorker cartoons. And Sophia Warren. And again, same thing. And she gave me a bunch of book recommendations too, which we always love, right? Get
Right.
more books on the shelves.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a common addiction, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure enough. My wife is, she's like, another book? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
one I really need.
Actually, always watch on Instagram this certain, they call it the invisible bookshelf, and it's really tall and narrow, and I'm obsessed with it, and I want to get it because I have stacks of books without shelves, kind of all around, and I'm like, this one could fit anywhere. Maybe I could get more than one of them because I want to get the stacks, off the floor. But I know I will just get new bookshelves and go, I can get some more books,
Yeah. Right. Now you got more space for books.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I moved, I bought 2 more bookshelves, and
Nice.
and they're full, obviously. My mom's the same way. My mom just moved, and she has 3 or 4 bookshelves, and I go to her house, and there's still stacks of books this high from the floor up.
Yeah.
She doesn't have enough room either.
I think you can start building things with your books, like a coffee table.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I've used them as shelves before.
Yeah.
They found some coffee cups.
So since 2024, since you got published in many magazines, so it's not just a New Yorker. So how does it feel from there to now? So it took a while to get there, but boom, now you're there. So how has it changed your existence? You're in Pennsylvania. Were you already in Pennsylvania at that point, or were you still up there in New York?
So I had sold to everywhere else except Airmail and the New Yorker before I moved. And yeah, I mean, I had a great job for 10 years. This, elevator mechanic. I was a union mechanic, so I had an annuity and stuff. And I just liquidated all of that. And I had enough to buy a small house, put a down payment and make my rent, my mortgage. That's New York talking, my rent.
Yeah.
I had enough to make my mortgage really small. And it was enough, like I could literally freelance and make my mortgage every month, no problem.
Nice.
So that was like the big plan. But when I came up here, no. But she reached out to me 2 months after I got here.
Wow.
And that was like all I needed. That was the glimmer of hope, even though I was here for almost a year. Actually, I was here a year without selling to her. Now I'm in my second year, and yeah, I've sold a handful now, and it's opened up doors. And the big door it opened, so I got in 2024, and 2025 was their centennial. So I got to go to the centennial party and meet every
everybody.
hero
Yeah.
I've ever had. I got to meet current people who've been in the magazine for a long time. And one cartoonist, I won't say who, but the following day, all the cartoonists got together, shared our sketchbooks, and he went through and he was going, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a kid's book?" And of course, I was like, "Yeah, I've thought about it, but no, basically no and yes." And he was like, "Well, I think you could probably do one." And he goes, "You have a kid?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What is your kid like?" And I go, "Bugs." He goes, "Perfect. Can you write a book about bugs?" And I go, "Yeah." And he starts telling me all this stuff about some of these other cartoonists who have gotten into the kids' books thing, and two specifically that have his agent, his literary agent. And he goes, "I'm going to send you my book." He's got a book coming out soon. He goes, "I'm going to send you my book dummy. I'm going to send you the draft after the agent gave me notes. And I'm going to send you the copy after the publisher gave me notes, the finished copy. And I'll let you see that," and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, "And I'll hook you up with my agent and we'll get the ball rolling." So that's what I'm currently doing now. So
cool.
I'm doing a kid's book about bugs.
So what part of the process are you just writing it? Are you creating it? Like you're creating it, or?
Yeah, writing and drawing. And so like it's basically, without like saying too much, is I'm doing a book called Where Do Bugs Live? And it's like not where you think they live, right? I mean, they're in your rug, but they're like making little pots of rice. It's all this like Arnold Lobel,
all those little
and
Waldo things to look at, right?
And things to look at, right? I'm putting a roly-poly on every page, right? Something that if a kid picks up on, all of a sudden they could say, "Oh my God, yeah, it's here. It gives you a reason to go back through the book again and again.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of those places, like I have a shot of a snail, and part of it's like they live in their shells, but when you see it, I have this huge cross section, and it's like a 3-story loft, and he's got like I've drawn like there's like 3 chandeliers, 9 lamps, like 24 picture frames, checkered kitchen floors, plants, tapestries, art studio in the attic.
Right.
Like I have all this stuff for you to look at. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I think I'm going to do, I don't know how many pages exactly. Most books are around 24 if I'm not mistaken, 24, 26.
So picture books are 32 standard. 32. Standard.
Okay.
I've never done a book under 40. I've never done a 32. I've only ever done 40-page books. So those are the 2 standard lengths.
His book was 24. That's what I was basing it on.
His book was 24. I wonder if I know the person you're talking about, but you don't want to name.
You do. We spoke about him already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. I can't believe, I couldn't believe I met him. He lives in LA. He flew in for the party.
I was not the person that I was thinking of, because there's a lot of New Yorker cartoonists who've done children's books. So I was thinking of Harry Bliss. So Harry Bliss.
Oh no, I haven't met him.
Oh yeah, because he's big with and he's done a lot of children's.
He did Bug Diaries. And which became a show, which is one of my kids' favorite shows, of course, naturally.
Yeah.
Bugs.
But it is again, like if you have good cartooning skills and that good cartooning brain, it's something we talk about all the time. It's like so many artists cross genres.
Yeah.
You can do, comic books or indie comics and still do children's books. You can, there's so many animators. We were talking with Chris about like caricature artists, like there's animators who do both. And so, yeah, it'll be great. I think that, again, that's another cool full circle moment thing. If your first memory of cartoons is actually looking at a kid's book.
Yeah. No, for me, and my kid is so excited about it. He's 5.
Yeah.
And he comes down, like, if I'm drawing normally, he's like kind of not interested. But if he sees I'm working on that now, he'll come in and chime in and like, "Hey, I think you should put a cicada over here in this." He's very big on what bugs I should draw. But
That's
and I am using that like that device I said that I saw in that Lobel. Like I have this
Cool.
idea
Yeah.
of like a wrap up moment, a rapid
Mm-hmm.
fire of like kind of where they live. Like a
mm-hmm.
lot of it's very embellished, but towards the end, I have it in my head where I'm gonna give this like rapid fire thing. And I have these lines with these teeny little tiny drawings next to each sentence.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah, come.
it's really awesome. So the world of children's books, the market of children's books, there's been a while where there haven't been a lot of funny ones, right?
Yeah,
And it seems like that should be like, children's humor go
yeah,
together like peanut butter and jelly. But
Right.
yeah, it's very tied in like when the world got a lot more serious, right? A little bit pre-pandemic, but around that time, and then through the pandemic, children's books got very serious in a
yes,
good way to soothe, right? To soothe kids' worries and anxieties and stuff. But lately, there's been such a demand and a cry for funny books for
yeah.
kids. So get it done, get it out
Yeah, no, this is a true like labor of love,
there.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a blast with it. Yeah, I'm being very silly, you know.
Mm-hmm. Just great.
That's
Sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
this is my favorite thing I've done. And again, like certain things I've said like artistically are very like painful to try and get
Mm-hmm.
through. Even if I'm like like in the realm of like doing spot illustrations for the New Yorker, something I want to do. And that's like in some senses it's like character design where if like you pick a dog doing something you just have to animate 12 frames, and it would seem like that's an easier thing, and that's a little bit easier, but like thinking about a New Yorker cover,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely I cannot do it. I've thought about it. I've drawn like I don't know how many of them, 9 of them. I've never pitched one of them. There's painstaking to put together for me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. But and this kid's book is totally the opposite. Everything comes very easy, and
good.
like
Just natural,
yeah, it
organic
feels
kind
like
of.
the right thing. Like if I don't have a book on me, which is very rare, it's like a couple of things will pop into my head for the book. I'll be like at the shop, like at the shopping, grocery shopping,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be writing on the list where like tomatoes, I'm like, oh, I flip it over, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny if bugs live over here or whatever.
Nice. That's the best when whatever project you're working on is just kind of infecting everything else you're thinking about and kind of running in the background.
And you
Yeah,
can't shut it off.
yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That means you're really tuned in. That usually happens when I'm driving, which is not a good time.
Yeah, when I was over committed on drawing, like I said, I started to drive during the pandemic. I would sit in traffic with a sketchbook on the steering wheel, and at red
Mm.
lights, I would draw the person in the car next to me.
That's
Or
Wow.
sometimes I would
or
draw like I used to start to pick out windows. I don't, that was like a big thing I would do. So I'd be like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much different architecture. I would just start drawing all the windows of all the buildings. And I like couldn't tell anyone. I told Brian once I did that. He was like, "Dude, don't draw while you're driving."
That's great though, kind of because it gives you a time limit. You got to draw on the spot, and then
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna
And
crash.
then
I'm at a red
consecutive.
light. But he was like,
yeah.
"I don't trust that you're." He knew how nuts I was.
That's one thing that I miss about living in New York City is you mentioned the windows. Like I always thought it's really cool when you just get like that 2-second glimpse of someone's life inside the windows. There's windows
Yeah,
everywhere, but not like there are in New York City where there's just so many people. It's like not even like
yeah.
understandable how many people live in New York
I
City.
used to have to turn that urge off because working in the elevator industry, you're like up high in buildings and you're getting glimpses of like lots of people's windows, and I'd feel
Yeah.
like a little bit like I gotta turn away.
Yeah. Right.
I feel creepy.
yeah.
Yeah. Like channels on TV, like turn the
Yeah.
channel, look
There
at it.
was a there was a show on HBO years ago. I think it was called HBO Voyeur. And it's a really interesting, ambitious show where it was the cross section of a building,
Ah,
and
Mm.
there's many stories going on in all the apartments, and you're watching them all unfold, and it's almost impossible to watch them all. And then like some of them start to tie into each other. There's like a party on the third floor. There's like a
Mm-hmm.
couple arguing on the second, and then someone runs out.
Hmm.
It's a really interesting show. I haven't thought about that since it aired.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. But yeah,
That'd be fun to do a drawing of that
Mhm.
cross section,
yeah. Cross-section books
cartoon version.
also that I used to love, though. I don't know if you guys had those, like the ones like a like pirate ship or like medieval castle.
Mhm.
I forget, there's like a very famous series of those. And
Yeah,
again,
David Macaulay. David Macaulay
Mm.
was a yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
so he
it.
did Cathedral and he did ship, and it's all different
Yes.
boats, and yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's another one of those, like, look at the tiny little drawings, and that, yeah, I
Mhm.
was obsessed with those books.
Yeah, I liken that to my obsession with Richard Scarry, even though it's not David Macaulay, but Richard
Yeah.
Scarry would do cross sections of like
Yes.
what do people do all day or Busy Town, and you'd see like all the different things that were going on.
Yeah, it's fun. I never got into his stuff either, and I wish I did now, because like now as older, I love
Right.
those drawings. I love the little apple, and
Yeah, well, I think just like you
Mhm.
did with comics and then you did with New Yorker cartoonists, finish your book first because don't let anything like influence you. You're in the
yeah,
groove, so don't
Yeah.
take in any other thing. But when you finish it, then you can do the same thing now with children's books and like
yeah,
just get like a a vacuum and just
yeah.
Deep dive. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
for 5 years now with a
And you have
kid.
a kid, so you
Yeah,
can
yeah. So I've been exposed and re-exposed. Like, I also love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was another very early one of Ron Barrett.
book, yeah.
His illustration style is beautiful, and he does the cross hatching, but he does perfect squares. Like,
Mhm.
that's his style of cross hatching, really perfect squares.
Yeah.
And when I first started to look at the American Bystander, that humor magazine, I went to the Society of Illustrators, and they were selling a couple of copies on the rack, and so I bought like 3 or 4 different issues, and one stood out to me a lot. I was like, man, this cover is gorgeous. And it was signed by this guy, Ron Barrett, who I didn't know, or I thought I didn't
Mm.
know. And then, yeah, it's of course the guy does Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And I was like, oh, of course it is. Like, no wonder I
Right.
loved it on this weird
Yeah.
Mhm.
level right when I looked at it.
Yeah.
And of course, it's because it's exactly like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's funny. Sometimes you don't know you know it, but something
Yeah.
inside of you recognizes it.
Yeah, he started my obsession too with like wallpapering stuff. Like, I love the look of like wallpaper, and it's because of him.
Mhm.
Like, when you open his book, it's like a single strand of spaghetti and then like a meatball, but it's now in the wallpaper pattern. And
Ah.
something about that really stuck out to me. And like in the 90s, there was like the bubble tape commercials and stuff, and they
Mhm.
all employed that in the background. There was all these like really bizarre wallpapers of like, a little tiny dog and a bone or something in the background. And to this day, I haven't figured out an application yet, like for like a New Yorker cartoon or for or
Mhm.
anything, but it's in the back of my head. I'm like, wallpaper is going to be, I'm going to do something with wallpaper with this wallpapering.
You can
Yeah,
design
yeah.
actual funny wallpaper.
That's true. I don't know
Yeah.
who's going to, I mean, maybe for a bathroom. I don't know who's putting
Yeah,
funny
yeah.
wallpaper up.
Well, end papers inside a book cover are great for that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Well, that's where he put it. I thought about that, but the one I'm doing one right now for the bug book,
Mhm.
and it's much more in line with Waldo. And in a lot
Mhm.
of his books, like, his covers are just, he does hundreds of characters, and so he has them in like little conga lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of doing, and wallpapered too. And I'm doing something similar. Like, I've just every time I have some free time, I'm drawing like a bug playing a trumpet, or a bug chef that's carrying like a bowl, and he's mixing, and they're all literally just for the purpose of having like a really beautiful cut, like, inside cover.
Cool. Man, I can't wait to see this book as it
Yeah, I'm
develops.
excited. I'm sure it's going to take some time, but I mean, just to be in the course of even thinking about getting it done, and actually having all the people in place that are waiting to see, it's such a bizarre thing, especially, yeah, being working on elevators for 10 years, and like being in a hard blue collar industry where like any
Right.
person I let know that I drew like gave me so much, they like they busted my chops over it big
Yeah.
time.
Right.
I was
That's
not,
funny.
there was like no like-minded folks.
Very cool.
That's cool. Well, it just was in you and had to become part of your life.
Yeah.
You know, that's so cool. You'd still do any of the kind of life sketching, the observational sketching?
I go to life drawing still during the week, but also, yeah, I mean, I'll still draw from photo reference. Like I thought, like I love that you do caricatures. I cool. Like when I draw from like photo reference, like Earth's World, those people.
Oh, those are so great. Yeah.
Um, and I love doing those. But yeah, doing caricatures is a whole different animal. And you would think like, oh, if you could draw people on the train, you could do. But caricature is a whole different beast.
It's
The
a
shape
unique animal. Yeah.
faces and all that kind of. It's amazing. I love that stuff so much.
It's fun. It's a great training ground, even at a later stage. Like you're always learning and
Right.
trying new things. So like it's still all about the simplifying and about shapes and designing, but it's an endless, you know,
Yeah. And you're using
exercise.
different like stuff for coloring and all that stuff too. So sometimes I see it looks like you're doing marker, maybe
Right.
airbrush sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes I just did a show, Chicago C2E2, and we have our airbrushes and our air compressors, and yeah, doing live drawing and then getting to paint it with the airbrush is a big kick, and because people don't see that as often anymore, and
Right.
that's a great fast way to get a nice finished cool looking painting.
Yeah,
But
that's
sometimes we'll
the only thing
do
I've never used is airbrush.
Airbrush, yeah.
Never used
cool.
one. I bought one years ago and I never
Oh
used it.
really?
Yeah. I don't know where it is now.
That's funny. Did you ever end up actually using the brayer and the roller?
Yeah. I used it for the Frank the Caterpillar stuff, and then I did
Oh
something
cool.
at one point. So during the pandemic, very early, again, I was like not on the train now, so I had like this little
Yeah.
identity crisis. Like, well, what am I going to draw?
Yeah.
And character design was big for me. Like, I still in my head, I like in the back of my mind, I really love Pixar and Disney and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so I looked for a mentorship, and I did one with Carlos Grangel, who is the character designer. He did all the designs for Corpse Bride,
Oh yeah.
Madagascar,
Yeah.
Hotel Transylvania, El
Mm-hmm.
Dorado. What else did he do? Shark Tale. He did. I mean, he's done so many. Did I say Kung Fu Panda? Um, and I did a mentorship with him, and I drew this character called Dust, and it was like about a little microscopic piece of dust that
Mm.
like lives in your carpet. And it was like sort of like the Wizard of Oz archetype, where he lives in this very dusty color palette, and then he gets sprung out into this great grand adventure.
Mm.
And I got to develop all these characters, lots of dusty looking ones, and these really bright looking characters. And I don't remember what the original question was, but that was like one of the big, things that I did early on. Like just exploring art, exploring mediums.
Yeah, and thinking in like terms of character design. We went from caricature to character design. That's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Gotcha.
that's kind of like the trajectory. But again, like what Chris was saying before, it's all just like trying to think about things, looking at things, and trying to find the shapes. And
Yeah.
whether
Oh,
you're pushing them towards something that's an appealing character, or you're pushing them towards something that's a crazy caricature,
yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
yeah.
that shape design is so important. And like,
Mhm.
I thought like when I first was drawing some of these characters, I'm like, this is a great shape design. That's what they're talking about. And then
Mm-hmm.
for it to go through Carlos's hands after I draw it, and for him to just simplify it just by a hair, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
it becomes so much better. Like
Yeah.
it's bizarre how clean, a design can look. Like I had this character, it's like a water bear, like a tardigrade, his little micro.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
And I drew him close to a teardrop, but not exactly. He had a lot more bumps and rolls. And Carlos turned him into a teardrop.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And the design became so much clearer and so much more fun because he was a
Mhm.
floating, flying character. So now that he has this wisp to him, I can roll him and whip him around and have this big
Yeah.
bottom follow him around. And
Mhm.
it was like this top heavy design. And yeah, I'll forever be thankful to him. just
Yeah.
besides like his knowledge, like he was so complimentary to me.
Right.
And I live to this day off of just like 2 compliments that he gave me. They roll in my, whenever I
Yeah.
have doubt, I think about some of the stuff he said to me, and I'm like, nah, if Carlos said that to me, I'm okay.
Be all right. Yeah.
Yeah, the ability to distill something, right? So that you're going to keep taking away and simplifying it and like extracting like the purest, the least amount of lines possible
Yeah,
that you can use to, again, it's like anything else. You put the work in, right?
yeah,
You do the work and then you have this other tool in your tool bag, that you
yeah.
can use.
When I first started doing like New Yorker cartoons, like I love Harry Bliss and I love Matt
Mhm.
Damon, and I would love to be like them because they embellish so much. But there was a cartoonist, this guy Dan Mistia. Um, he gets so much done with so little. His line
Mhm.
economy
Mm-hmm.
is otherworldly, and I
Right.
remember like poring over his cartoons in the very beginning, and I'm much more close to that, where I'm like doing less
Yeah.
and trying to figure out, okay, how can I get the most out of this character with the least
Mhm.
amount of lines.
Yeah.
And now more and more, I'm actually realizing like a lot of my stuff probably looks like Waldo characters, or maybe they're morphing
Ah,
into them now that I have the box set back.
right.
But I'm just like, I think it's really starting to look like Waldo characters to me, which makes sense. My eyes were glued to those pages. I
I
really
like
would love
the
to see
idea
his stuff.
about like trying to get Waldo into a museum. The Norman
Yeah.
Rockwell Museum this year is having an I Spy exhibit.
Hmm.
Ah,
So all of those little toys and the collections. Well, I can't
yes,
remember the guy's name is Walter something who made those books, and they were kind of the same. They came out the same time as the Waldo books. All of that kind of like
yeah,
look and seek and find
So you can
mhm.
stuff.
find, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
highlights books.
Like, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, all of those, like when you have to look through all of the drawings to find
Yeah, that's my
whatever it
favorite
is,
stuff.
you're
It
looking
really
for.
is.
Yeah, yeah. So it would seems like a natural. I think that would be a pretty fun exhibit. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
over here where I live in Massachusetts. I'm not far from the Erk Carl Museum. It's
okay.
like, yeah, a short.
And are you close? Is that close to like the Rockwell Museum?
I live about 35 minutes from the Rockwell and 20 minutes from
Oh,
Carl. So
so
I mean,
jealous.
I
I've been to the Rockwell Museum twice or maybe 3 times.
Mhm.
But out of all the museums I've ever been to in New York and the Met and this and that,
Mhm.
you can rattle them all off. The Clark Museum is it's the best museum like in the country to me, or that I've seen. It beats all
Yeah.
the New York museums out to me. Have
What's
Yeah.
you been
the
there?
no? What's the story with that one?
You,
So the Clark is so there's Stockbridge, right, which is the
yes.
Hmm.
Berkshires.
Yeah.
And I was telling you about Mass Mocha, which is also in the
Right.
Berkshires. Have you ever been
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Mass Mocha, awesome. So
Yeah.
there's a triangle of museums.
Yeah.
Mm.
Next time you come out here, you can do
Yeah.
the Rockwell, the Clark, and Mass Mocha, and you get like juiced up for a year, like
That's what I
all
did.
kinds of art inspiration. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Nice.
It's really
Yeah,
great.
I did it. I did that twice, and I brought a
Mhm.
friend of mine. So same thing, and kind of the same trajectory. A
Mhm.
friend of mine who got in trouble for a long time and
Uh,
spun out of control, and his lasted much longer than mine. And he normalized and leveled out and started to draw. And I brought him out to the Berkshires, and that's where we went. We went to Mocha, the Rockwell, and the Clark.
Yeah,
And he's now been drawing every day for like 2 years,
yeah,
and
cool.
he's starting to get the bug. You know,
Nice.
he sends me drawings every single day. Like, I did this. I was tired today. I wanted to go to sleep, but instead I did a drawing. And I'm like, all
yeah.
right, yeah,
Cool. That's the best.
yeah, yeah. He's got to figure out. I'm like, you're not gonna know for a little bit, but it'll level
Right.
out. I'm like, you like animals, you like monsters. Something will shake out there.
Right. I
One thing
like how
about
you
that.
knew
No, go ahead.
that kind of 10-year track. Like, yeah, if and Steven Silver used to to us about this. It's like, if you want to be a doctor, you got to study like crazy. If you want to be an artist, study art the way like doctors study medicine. Like
100%.
same thing. If you want to get that good, you know.
Yeah, that was the philosophy. And I love Steven Silver too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the best. I know he was doing those like portfolio reviews at one point. I don't know if he's still doing them, but yeah, it was like, you know, when I was doing character design, I was like, oh, I want some FaceTime with him.
Yeah, he's great. I was gonna say like how I wonder if there's any scientific study about like drawing releasing dopamine, like giving you some kind of a fix, because I always think of like when I'm drawing and I'm like in what I call the zone, like time doesn't exist. Like it's literally like an altered state that you get into when you're drawing. So I almost wonder if that like can be like studied as like, is there some chemical releasing when you're drawing? Not that scientists want to study us, but you know, like
I'm sure there is.
There's got to be,
Yeah, it has to be. It's definitely like a dopamine thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I the
especially
same
when
thing.
you're,
yeah, just full deep
flow.
into that flow state. Yeah,
for sure.
Do you find it harder to get into those now, like with the social media and the phone and all that? Or do you find yourself kind of checking in on that kind of stuff?
I do.
It can be easy. It can be tough to break away, to allow yourself to, enough space to get into that flow state. But I still get into it. But yeah, I think I go longer in between, thanks to distractions.
That's what I'm asking, because I know I was so hyper obsessed, and now a little bit, I get pulled away. I'll realize I'm on my phone, deadlines, and I do, still doing 5 to 10 cartoons a week, and trying to squeeze other stuff in, and I'm like, I gotta put this.
I find what I used to do when I first started really getting into drawing, and out of high school, I was drawing caricatures, and I met this artist Kababi Bayak, who's an awesome. I do caricatures with him a million years ago, but then he does amazing murals now, and he's doing kids' books and stuff and paintings. But he would basically draw with us all day at the caricature stand at Six Flags, and then he would go home and paint most of the night. And I'm like, man, I'm not working hard enough. I need to do my comics like that. So I started doing that. So now I go back to that, where if I'm distracted or have actual adult stuff to do in the daytime, it takes you away from the drawing table.
Yeah.
I'll still pull some of those, between 8 and 2 or 3 in the morning, and just, knuckle down and focus without any distraction.
Yeah, I'm still able to do that. There's also I remember watching this thing on Basquiat, which always makes me feel a little bit better, that you'd walk into his studio and he'd have the TV on, the radio on.
Oh yeah.
He had all these distractions, but he's still, and I think I'm kind of like that too, where I have this stuff going sometimes, but I'm still drawing anyways. There'll be an ad playing and I'm like, how long has that ad been playing there? Next to my head. I gotta shut the phone off, because it's just whatever. It's an ad for, whatever it is.
Sometimes a little bit of that kind of white noise can help. It's like you're feeding off the energy. I find I used to do some of my favorite sketching when I was drawing caricatures in New Orleans at the Riverwalk Mall. And we'd be slow, but there's so much going on around. You're kind of feeding off that energy and maybe overhearing random conversations, and that goes into your sketchbook and comes out through a comic later.
Do you two listen to music when you draw?
I listen to music. Yeah, I listen to music. I almost need to have music on. Sometimes I'll do an audiobook, but I have to be so far into a project that I don't have to be actively thinking. If I'm on final art or something like that, where my brain is split, then I can do things that are, with an audiobook or a podcast.
Yeah.
But if it's any of the ideating part of it, all the beginning part of it, I'll just listen to music. I'll even go far, like if I have a book and I'm working on a specific book, I'll make a playlist, but then I'll play that playlist, which kind of does the same thing on repeat over
Yeah.
and over again. You
Yeah.
know?
Now, can you listen to music with lyrics or no lyrics?
If I am writing,
Yeah.
no, instrumental.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I'm asking,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
yeah, if I'm writing, it's got to be like instrumental music.
Yeah.
If I'm coming up with an idea, it has to be silence. I can't have almost any music unless it's maybe classical, maybe.
Right.
And then, but then if I'm drawing and I'm like at the end of a thing where I'm just coloring or doing shading or something, yeah, then I can put the noise on. It could be
Right.
music with lyrics. It could be a podcast. Yeah, I always find that interesting. I love asking other artists because there's some people who are very strict about like, no noise.
Right.
It's the best. And I know there's truth to it. I think I maybe asked that to like, so people could tell me, stop listening to anything. But
yeah, no, I need something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes if I'm trying to write something and it's like something that it isn't coming easy, like it's not, then I'll be inside. But other than that, I can't be in silence.
Yeah.
I need.
Yeah, I think I always have something going.
And I like it cranked too. Like I know, like
Oh,
I've
yeah.
given myself some hearing issues. I like to crank it when I'm drawing in the studio and sing loudly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can sing and draw.
Right.
Yeah. You take dance breaks?
But I don't, but I should. I should take
You
dance.
should, yeah.
Yeah.
Get the blood flowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a fun thing we do. It's tough, but it's definitely it's more fun than tough.
What is better than to be able to say what you do for a living is I'm a cartoonist,
That's the best.
right?
Yeah.
Best.
Yeah.
The best.
Especially because
first,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say my first literary agent that I had when I first was trying to get published told me to remove the word cartoonist from all my postcards and my portfolio because I always wrote above illustrator. I just wrote cartoonist on everything.
Mm-hmm.
All I ever wanted to be. I didn't
Right.
want to grow up wanting to be an illustrator. I didn't really think about that term, even though it's kind of an umbrella term for lots of different kinds, including, cartooning kinds of illustration. I just wanted to be a cartoonist. It didn't matter in what direction I went, whether it was comic books or comic strips or animated. I was like, I just want to be a cartoonist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to actually be able to say that you didn't stop or that you decided to start again, and get there, it's the best.
What was the one when you were a kid? What was like the earliest?
My earliest cartoon memory
Yeah.
is probably watching early in the morning, watching cartoons as a little kid
Yeah.
on my parents' shag rug.
Yep.
And yeah, we had a TV and a metal TV cart when I was really little, and I remember it. And I remember like the way that because I'm a little bit older than you guys, the way that when you turned the channel, because we'd never remote, went ka-tonk, ka-tonk, ka-tonk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you
I
turn
remember that.
remember those? Yeah. So yeah. And it was so exciting when you didn't have to do that anymore. You got the newer TV. So my earliest happiest memories were actually I always think of Andy Panda and or Tom and Jerry.
Oh, Tom and Jerry.
As my earliest cartoons that I would watch. And I always sat with my dad would always bring home legal pads before I went to drawing paper. I would just draw on his legal pads, while I was watching. And it just was lots of when I was really little, I'd just draw lots of circles all over, and those circles would slowly turn into Tom or Jerry or Andy Panda.
Yeah.
So that's my earliest memory. At some point as a kid, I put together that I could tape my drawings on my windows with Scotch tape, and I'd have a light box.
You did that all organically?
Right.
I just knew that I could, like, at some point I went, if I put a paper on top of another paper and I take a whole roll of Scotch tape, because my windows are covered with Scotch tape, that I could, like, draw over my drawing.
Wow, you figured that out on your own. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. That's like, so that's
Impressive.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
impressive. My kid's, he was like a tough laugh, hard to get him to laugh when he was like real little. And the thing that consistently made him belly laugh all of a sudden was when I introduced Tom and Jerry to him.
Oh.
Like he went from like barely laughing to like,
Yeah.
like tears rolling down his face laughing. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's one of our favorites here in the house.
Yeah.
We watch a lot. And Popeye, he loves Popeye.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Which was one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah. Same here.
And but he like belly laughs, like he thinks it's hilarious. Like besides like getting punched like to the moon, he thinks like just the way Popeye talks is funny.
Oh, sure.
Like the muttering under his breath, and you can't understand him. Like he finds all that at 5 years old very humorous, which is very funny to me because it's like, to me that's like kind of like the adult joke is the muttering under your breath.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. You're like doing the good work, passing that down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very important.
What about you, Chris? What was the early one? I want to know.
Also big Tom and Jerry, but to me, all the Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck,
Yeah. Do you have a favorite of those? Like, so like for me, it's Bob Clampett out of all like the Looney Tunes creators.
Right.
I liked, and I didn't know. It's weird how like you could be a kid and have your favorites and have like other ones like you don't enjoy as much. And then when I was older, I was like, oh wow, all the ones I loved were like Bob Clampett and Tex Avery were like the two that I always
it was
loved.
Chuck Jones, you'd see Charles M. Jones and know, oh, this is going to be a good one.
Yep.
But Tex Avery as well. It's like you could see who's coming up.
Yeah.
Tex Avery, Bob Clampett.
I
we would even watch Beanie.
Everybody talks about Fizz Freleng. Like nobody.
To me, it's like
you don't like it as much.
He's my least favorite, but
yeah, same here.
But
he's got some classics, but
yeah, of course he does because he has
some standouts. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think he did like really well with the Wile E. Coyote stuff. I think he has some good ones. And maybe he really loved those or something, but yeah, he's got some good ones. And Tex Avery really didn't do as much Looney Tunes, almost zero. It really anytime he did something, it was like he's included in like he's included in the Tom and Jerry packet when it's in their seasons, but he doesn't draw Tom or Jerry. He has his own dog. He doesn't have
the dog. Yeah, when he went MGM, it was
It's his own dog, his own cat, and it's there with the Tom and Jerry. It's in the middle of like season 2 of Tom and Jerry.
Yep.
And it's directed by Tex Avery, and it's the only cartoons without Tom and Jerry. I was like, how do you pull that off?
Yeah.
But he was
how much of a badass he is.
He got special dispensation.
Yeah.
His own characters. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, we've been going a while now. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're working on this cool picture book as kind of what you're currently getting into, but can you tell us where we can find you online or elsewhere?
Right now, just Instagram, which is chrisgural.art at Instagram. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Nice. And you got some of your animation on there as well?
Yeah. And if you click on the little video side of it, it's all there. And it even goes back to like the sketchbook flip throughs of the train drawings and all that stuff. So it's like a crash course of kind of that stuff. I want to repost some of those. In doing the talk for Brian's class, I went back through them, which is 7 years, like thousands of drawings. And when you're in the midst of doing stuff, I didn't enjoy them as much. Like I was very super critical of all those drawings. I had like maybe a handful that I really was like, okay, these I do like, I can say that. But like 90% of them I didn't like. And now it's totally the opposite. I like 90% of them now. And I like see them through kinder eyes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like going through them. I'm like, man, I should repost some of these because
You do like the Throwback Thursday or the Flashback Friday
yeah.
Right.
thing.
And like
like
there was a
bring
point
back.
where I was very quickly, I know because we haven't gone
No,
long, but
it's okay.
I was drawing like the homeless on the train.
Mm-hmm.
So and it became like a little bit of an obsession because I started to notice like I'd be on the train platform at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and the train would go by and it'd be full car, empty car, full car, full, and I knew that empty car. There was either one, two, or three homeless people sleeping on there, and of course it's empty because you got all the reasons, right? You have mental health and schizophrenia and violence and the hazards of feces and all that kind of stuff. But I felt compelled. Like I already felt like an altruism to just drawing regular people, seeing tired
Mm-hmm.
working class people. I like drawing them, and then I started to draw the homeless like obsessively. And I have tons of those drawings, and I even bought like a special sketchbook. I was buying like long paper because
Mm-hmm.
most of the time I drew them, they were laying flat
Horizontal.
across the thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So every composition started to become
That's
the
amazing.
entire. And yeah, I was going back through those. I was like, man, these are so like they don't have a home anymore. Like Instagram used to be a place for them. And I did have the same guy who asked to do the album cover.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do a book with me,
Mm.
and I never did it, and I really should have.
And now you have an agent.
Yeah. Well, at the time though, I really thought like I thought the drawings were bad. I didn't like
Right.
I didn't like so many
yeah.
of them, and he was like, "I love these. Please, like we should really do a book."
Yeah.
And I was like, no. I was like, when I get better, I'll talk about it with you. And then yeah, now I look at them, I'm like, man, I should have did that. It would have been so much fun. Anyway, yeah, he had really great ideas for it. He was a producer, but he got signed to Fat Beats, and they gave him all this, like they gave him money to produce a record, and he told the company, I don't want to produce a record, I want to do a book. And then he came to me with this idea, and then I was like, I don't want to, and I didn't tell him why. I just thought the drawings were bad at the time.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite books are when artists publish a sketchbook or a sketch collection.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Me
some of my
too.
absolute favorite books. So
Do you have any recommendations for those?
well, do you have The Visitor by Peter DeSev? Did you get that one?
yeah.
It's his
No,
newest. It's his
have
newest
Local
book,
Fauna.
right? He came out with two books, Local Fauna
I got that.
and The Visitor. The Visitor is more of his rough sketches than his
Yeah.
beautiful finished.
It might be European.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is.
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
might be able to get it somehow.
I have it right here. Besides Local Fauna, then I have this. It doesn't have a sleeve anymore, but this one, which is
Sketchy Past. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
the art of. And then I do have Local Fauna.
I always remember one of the ones I bought. There's Dave Cooper.
Oh,
So we have another Dave Cooper fan.
language. My guy. Oh my God. I have Pillowy.
Yeah.
He is unbelievable. I have all of Dave Cooper's stuff, man.
Nice.
He is just.
Well, that's his newest one. You got
I
that one
didn't
yet?
get this yet.
So good.
Yeah, I got to pick that up.
And
Stuff that he's done.
He's an interesting
The stuff he's done since Pillowy.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, Pillowy's huge.
yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, right? You were just about to say that.
Oh, yeah.
He's
And
an
he,
interesting guy.
but besides like early on, like all of like his real like explicit cartoons, and then he got to do a kids show, which is like without a pen name. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
so impressive, such a nice little wrinkle in his beautiful career that he's made for himself.
Yeah, he did that
absolutely.
podcast episode. Bob Fingerman has a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
he,
with
so
Bill
there's
Ray.
and there's it's Bob Fingerman, Bill Ray, and David Cooper,
Yeah.
and they're funny. Like it was a really good, like
Yeah. But they get really technical, too. It's a good, like,
Yeah.
shop talk among old friends.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's another thing. This is not in our rapid questions, but do you have a favorite other than Procreate? Because I know you like Procreate.
Yeah.
But if you're going to work on paper, what's your favorite thing to draw with?
Ooh, that's so interesting now. What is my favorite thing? It used to be ballpoint. Now I'm just using microns.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But
What
they're not my
number?
favorite. You know what my favorite thing is right now? And I just wish this was. These are these Pentel SLI CCIs. They're slitchy. They're super super thin. They're razor thin. But they don't hold up to water. If these held up to water, they'd be my favorite. I use Micron because they hold up to water, and then I fill up one of these with ink and water, and that's my ink wash.
Nice. Ah, nice.
This is just general ink wash. If I have to do something like varying degrees of tone, then I'll bust out the real stuff. But yeah, just Microns. I hate that answer. I wish I had a better answer. I liked it better when it was ballpoint pen.
Yeah. I love drawing with ballpoint pen too, and I think it's even it has to smell right, because when I was young, I used to love the way that ballpoint pen smelled. Like sometimes it smelled like just slightly fruity. It's weird. And even like the pen that has the 4 colors where you push down the buttons.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you're doing a full page and you're emptying the barrel of that ballpoint pen, the smell really kicks up because that was my favorite though. Especially you get those light, beautiful lines and dark, and I gotta find a way to work it back in.
Some shading with them.
It's versatile.
Yeah.
Like a ballpoint pen can be really, really versatile.
Yeah.
You know.
And I do like the nib on these guys. This is the other thing I use. Let's see. These Kiritaki. It's just got the little flexible nib.
I love those. Yeah, I like that kind of nib. Yeah.
Like the Micron's nice, and I like having a nice steady line, but if I need any kind of variation in weight, then I use something like that.
Does that hold up to water? The Kiritaki line?
Yeah. Yeah, those hold up.